Narrator voice, deep, chilling tone. In every city there are stories whispered in the shadows of hospitals, places where the sick come to heal, but some never leave. Among these forgotten tales, one stands out as the most disturbing of them all. The story of the killer nurse, a woman whose gentle smile masked a monstrous secret, and a spirit that even death could not silence. The nurse's past. Her name was Margaret Hale, a nurse in the 1960s. On the surface, she was everything you would expect from a caretaker. Soft-spoken, polite, and always wearing a warm smile beneath her crisp white uniform. Patients adored her, families trusted her, and doctors praised her for her dedication. But behind those caring eyes was something darker. Margaret carried a bitterness that no one truly understood. Raised in a broken home, abandoned by her parents, and raised by an abusive grandmother, Margaret grew up believing pain was love. When she became a nurse, she learned quickly how much power she held over life and over death. The first incident. It began small. One patient, an elderly man, constantly rang his bell demanding attention. Margaret, exhausted and frustrated, injected him with a dose far stronger than prescribed. His breathing slowed and then stopped. The death was ruled natural causes. Margaret stood quietly at his bedside, her lips curling into a faint smile. For the first time in her life, she felt in control. The secret pattern. Over the next year, more patients began to die under Margaret's care. Always late at night. Always when she was on duty. At first, no one suspected her. After all, hospitals were places where people died all the time. But whispers began to spread among the staff. Nurses would say, "Strange, all these deaths, always when Margaret is around." One nurse claimed she saw Margaret humming a lullaby while pressing a syringe into a patient's IV. Another swore she found Margaret in the morgue, standing over a body, stroking its hair. But without evidence, the hospital did nothing. The breaking point. By 1968, the number of mysterious deaths had reached nearly 30. Families demanded answers. Authorities finally launched an investigation. When confronted, Margaret laughed, a hollow, eerie sound. "They were suffering," she whispered. "I just wanted to help them find peace." But when the evidence surfaced, empty syringes hidden in her locker, and traces of unprescribed morphine in multiple victims, her mask shattered. Margaret Hale was arrested. The execution. At trial, she showed no remorse. Witnesses testified to her coldness, her chilling lullabies in the hospital hallways, and her obsession with death. The jury needed only 3 hours to reach a verdict. Guilty. Margaret was sentenced to death. In her final moments before the electric chair, she looked at the prison chaplain and whispered, "You don't understand. I'm not done yet. They still need me." And then the lights flickered. Her body convulsed. The execution ended her life, or so everyone thought. Narrator voice whispering. But death was only the beginning, because in the years that followed, the halls of St. Mary's Hospital would echo with footsteps and the soft, chilling hum of a lullaby. Long after Margaret Hale was gone, after Margaret Hale's execution, the world thought her chapter was closed. But some doors, once opened, never truly shut. St. Mary's Hospital carried on, but in its walls her presence lingered. What began as whispers soon became undeniable terror. The first signs. It started in the maternity ward. New mothers claimed they heard a woman humming softly late at night, just outside their rooms. When nurses checked, the halls were empty. One patient said she saw a figure in an old-fashioned nurse's uniform, standing in the corner of her room, holding a syringe. When the lights flicked on, there was no one there. Staff brushed it off as stress, exhaustion, or grief. But deep down, some of the older nurses whispered, "Margaret's back." Unexplained deaths returned. Then patients started dying again. Not dozens, but enough to raise fear. Young, recovering patients, those expected to survive, were suddenly found lifeless in their beds. The cause? Unknown. No medical explanation. One doctor, Dr. Reynolds, recalled a chilling detail. Every time a patient died mysteriously, the night staff reported hearing the same thing, a lullaby echoing faintly in the corridors. The janitor's encounter. The hospital's night janitor, Samuel, was the first staff member to openly admit what he saw. One evening, as he pushed his mop bucket down the dim corridor, he noticed a flicker of light at the far end. He squinted and froze. There she was, a nurse in an outdated 1960s uniform, cap tilted, standing perfectly still. Her face was pale, her lips curled in a faint smile, and in her hand a syringe gleamed. He whispered, "Miss, are you lost?" The figure tilted her head and vanished into thin air. Samuel dropped his mop and ran. He never returned to work. The paranormal team investigation. By the late 1970s, St. Mary's was infamous. Whispers of the killer nurse's ghost spread across town. Families refused to admit loved ones to the hospital. Desperate to clear its reputation, the administration invited a team of paranormal investigators. The team set up cameras in the abandoned West Wing, the same wing Margaret had once worked in. That night, they captured footage that shook even the skeptics. A hospital bed slowly rolling down the hall by itself. A shadowy figure appearing in the reflection of a window. An EVP recording of a soft female voice whispering, "Don't be afraid. I'll take care of you." When the audio was played back, one of the investigators fainted. The nurse's curse. Nurses who worked night shifts began to resign one by one. They claimed to feel cold hands brushing against theirs when no one was around. Some said they woke up with bruises shaped like fingerprints after dozing in the break room. The most chilling account came from a trainee nurse who swore she felt a prick in her arm. While checking supplies, she looked down and saw a tiny drop of blood in the shadows of the supply room. She thought she saw Margaret's pale face watching her. The trainee quit that night, screaming she would never step foot in that hospital again. Narrator voice deep, unsettling. Margaret Hale was executed for her crimes. But her ghost, her obsession with caring for patients, carried on. And every year, more and more deaths at St. Mary's became unexplainable. To this day, the killer nurse is said to still be on duty. Decades passed, but the spirit of Margaret Hale never rested. St. Mary's Hospital became a husk of its former self, always empty, paint peeling, rooms abandoned. But for thrill seekers, paranormal investigators, and lost souls, it became something else. A beacon of darkness. And the killer nurse? She was still waiting, still on duty. The modern investigators, in the early 2000s, the rise of ghost hunting shows brought fresh attention to St. Mary's. A group of young investigators, armed with cameras, spirit boxes, and bravado, entered the West Wing one cold October night. At first they laughed, joking about finding Nurse Hale. But the laughter didn't last long. One investigator, Jessica, turned on her spirit box. The static crackled. Then a voice came through. A woman's voice, soft, almost soothing. "Don't cry. I'll help you sleep." The group froze. Moments later, their EMF meters spiked violently. Lights flickered in the hallway. And on camera, behind one of the investigators, a faint figure appeared. A woman in a blood-stained nurse's uniform, syringe in hand. They screamed, bolting for the exit. But as they ran, one camera captured something chilling. A shadowy hand brushing against the cameraman's shoulder. Later, he showed bruises shaped exactly like long, bony fingers. The footage aired online and went viral, cementing the legend of the killer nurse for a whole new generation. The security guard's story. One night in 2012, a security guard assigned to patrol the abandoned hospital reported his own terrifying experience. He was making rounds when he heard it. The sound of humming, soft, gentle, the same lullaby patients once swore they heard. As he approached the old ICU room, the humming grew louder. His flashlight flickered. And then he saw her, Margaret Hale, standing over an empty bed, leaning forward, as if checking a patient's pulse. Her eyes lifted to meet his, glowing faintly white. She raised a syringe and took one step toward him. The guard dropped his flashlight and sprinted out of the building. He quit the very next morning. The final shutdown. By 2015, St. Mary's was deemed unsafe. The building was shut down permanently, sealed with iron gates, windows boarded up. But locals say that even now, if you drive past late at night, you can still see a flicker of light in the top floor windows. Some claim you'll hear the faint echo of a woman's lullaby carried by the wind. Others swear they've seen her silhouette in the window. Margaret, waiting, smiling, syringe in hand. The legend lives on. Paranormal forums still buzz, with stories of the killer nurse. Some investigators believe her spirit lingers because she doesn't know she's dead. Others think she's aware and simply doesn't care. One chilling theory says that Margaret doesn't just haunt the hospital. She follows certain people home. Those who mock her, those who disturb her resting place. Those who laugh at the story, sometimes wake in the middle of the night to see a figure in white standing at their bedside, always smiling, always humming, always carrying her syringe. Interview 1. The former doctor. Dr. Reynolds, now retired, still trembles when speaking of St. Mary's. "I was a man of science. I didn't believe in ghosts. But after watching perfectly healthy patients die, for no reason, always on the night shift, I couldn't deny it anymore. Once I swore I felt someone breathing down my neck while I worked. When I turned, no one was there. But the smell? It was the same floral perfume Margaret used to wear. I will never forget it." Interview 2. The trainee nurse. The young nurse who fled the hospital decades ago still refuses to drive past it. Her voice cracks as she recalls. "That prick on my arm. I felt it. It was real. I saw her in the shadows. Her eyes were hollow, her smile wrong. People told me it was stress, that I imagined it. But I know what I saw. She wanted me to be her next patient. Interview 3, the janitor's son. Samuel, the janitor who quit after... Narrator voice, deep, chilling tone. In every city there are stories whispered in the shadows of hospitals. Places where the sick come to heal, but some never leave. Among these forgotten tales, one stands out as the most disturbing of them all. The story of the killer nurse, a woman whose gentle smile masked a monstrous secret, and a spirit that even death could not silence. The nurse's past, narrator voice, has since passed away. In every
his son
city,
remembers
there are
his father's
stories whispered
warnings.
in the shadows of hospitals.
Dad used to wake up screaming
Places
in the
where the
middle
sick
of the
come
night,
to heal,
swearing
but
she
some
was
never
standing
leave.
at the foot of his
Among
bed.
these forgotten tales,
He told me,
one stands
if you
out
ever
as the
hear
most
humming in the
disturbing
dark,
of them
don't
all.
follow it.
The
Don't
story of
answer
the
it.
killer nurse,
Just
a
run.
woman whose
The
gentle
viral
smile
clip.
masked a
In
monstrous
2018,
secret,
a
and
video
spirit
appeared online
that even death
A group
could
of
not
teenagers
silence.
snuck into the hospital
The
with their
nurse's
phones.
past. They laughed, shouted, dared each other to call out Margaret's name. But the laughter turned into screams when the camera caught something unexpected. A figure, a nurse in white, standing at the far end of the hall, motionless, watching. The video cut abruptly as the teens fled. None of them have spoken publicly since, but the clip remains on the internet, racking up millions of views. Proof, perhaps, that Margaret Hale is still there. The cinematic outro. Narrator voice, slow, echoing final words. St. Mary's Hospital may be locked, its doors sealed, its windows boarded. But the legend of the killer nurse endures. Some spirits never rest, some sins never fade, and some stories never end. So the next time you visit a hospital late at night, when the halls are quiet, when the lights flicker, when you hear the faintest hum of a lullaby, remember her name. Margaret Hale, the nurse who never stopped caring, the ghost who never stopped